The piercing, frantic barks echoed through the busy city street, cutting through the usual urban symphony of honking taxis and distant sirens. All eyes were drawn to the unsettling scene unfolding near the bustling intersection. A large police dog, its muscles coiled and taut, was aggressively, incessantly barking at a blind woman. Her posture radiated distress, a palpable tension gripping her shoulders, while her guide dog, a magnificent golden retriever, stood stiffly beside her, an unusual wariness in his normally serene demeanor. The air crackled with a mixture of confusion and growing alarm as passers-by slowed their pace, their conversations dying down to hushed whispers, each person visibly struggling to comprehend the unfolding drama. This was Sarah's world, a vibrant tapestry woven from sounds, smells, and textures that she navigated with an astonishing grace despite her inability to see. A young woman of unwavering resilience, Sarah lived in a bustling American metropolis, a place that offered endless opportunities for independence and connection, largely thanks to her loyal companion Buster. Buster wasn't just a pet. He was her eyes, her confidence, and her constant shadow. A golden retriever of exceptional training and an inherently calm temperament, he moved with an almost ethereal quietness, his presence a comforting anchor in Sarah's rich, tactile existence. Their bond was a silent, profound understanding, built on years of shared experience and an undeniable, mutual trust that transcended the ordinary relationship between human and animal. Together, they conquered sidewalks, crossed daunting avenues, and explored the vibrant sensory landscapes of their city. On this particular morning, the rhythm of their routine walk to the local market was punctuated by the familiar sounds of vendors setting up their stalls, the distant rumble of the subway, and the cheerful chatter of early shoppers. Sarah walked with a confident stride, her hand resting lightly on Buster's harness, feeling the steady, purposeful cadence of his paws. The aroma of freshly baked bread mingled with the faint scent of rain from the night before, a comforting blend that promised a pleasant day. Buster guided her expertly around a newly placed street vendor's cart, his body shifting imperceptibly to signal the obstruction, then continued his forward march with an almost regal dignity. Suddenly, the familiar urban hum was shattered by an abrupt booming snarl. A police K-9 unit had appeared seemingly out of nowhere, its presence immediate and imposing. Before Sarah could even register the full implications of its arrival, the police dog erupted into a torrent of aggressive, continuous barking. The sound was deafening, primal, and directed squarely at her. Each bark felt like a physical blow, reverberating through her very core. Sarah's heart leaped into her throat, a cold dread washing over her. She faltered, her steps becoming uncertain, her mind racing to process the sudden, terrifying assault on her senses. Why was this happening? What could possibly provoke such an intense reaction? Buster, usually the epitome of unflappable composure, stiffened beside her. His head swiveled towards the source of the noise, his ears twitching, and a low guttural growl rumbled deep in his chest. It was a sound Sarah rarely heard from him, a protective warning that sent a shiver down her spine. His normally relaxed tail was now rigid, and his entire body radiated a tension mirroring her own. The aggressive barks from the police dog continued relentlessly, a relentless assault that left Sarah feeling utterly exposed and profoundly disoriented, her world suddenly reduced to a terrifying, cacophonous blur. The once familiar street now felt hostile, utterly alien, and brimming with an unseen threat she couldn't possibly comprehend. Please subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming and thrilling stories. The police officer, a stern-faced man named Miller, was visibly struggling to maintain control of his canine partner, Axel. The German Shepherd, usually a picture of focused obedience, was now an agitated whirlwind of fur and muscle, straining at the leash, his barks echoing off the surrounding buildings. Each sharp guttural sound seemed to punch Sarah in the chest, disorienting her further. Her world, already a tapestry woven from sounds and textures, had suddenly shredded into a cacophony of fear. She could feel the vibrations of Axel's powerful body through the pavement, a terrifying rhythmic thrum against her feet. The relentless barking was more than just noise. It was an assault, a relentless, piercing sound that made her head throb and her stomach clench. Sarah clutched Buster's harness with white knuckles, her heart hammering a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She could feel Buster's usually steady breathing become shallow, his body tense and coiled, a stark contrast to his typical calm demeanor. His low growl, a rumble deep in his chest, was almost imperceptible beneath Axel's ferocity, but Sarah felt it, a primal response to the perceived threat. She was utterly vulnerable, unable to ascertain the source or nature of the danger. Was the dog attacking her? Was she in the wrong place? The confusion was paralyzing, exacerbating her fear. Around them, a crowd began to swell, drawn by the commotion. Whispers turned into murmurs, then into increasingly loud questions and concerned exclamations. Sarah could hear snippets of conversation floating towards her. What's going on? Why is that dog barking at her? She's blind, for crying out loud. Each bystander's voice, though full of concern, only served to amplify her unease. The spotlight was on her, a humiliating and terrifying realization. Officer Miller, despite his years of experience with canine units, was thoroughly perplexed by Axel's behavior. Axel, a highly trained German Shepherd, was known for his impeccable discipline and unerring focus during assignments. He had served commendably for years, his instincts honed to perfection, yet he had never reacted this way to a civilian, let alone a blind individual. To Miller, it made no sense. Axel should have been calm, assessing, perhaps even indifferent. Instead, he was a coiled spring of aggression, fixated solely on Sarah. This was not typical canine protocol. This was an inexplicable aggressive warning, a behavior Miller couldn't rationalize. He yanked at Axel's leash, his voice firm with commands. "Axel, heel, down, boy." But Axel was unyielding, his powerful neck muscles straining. His eyes, Miller noticed with a jolt, not filled with malice, but with an intense, almost desperate focus beyond Sarah. Miller tried reasoning with the growing crowd, attempting to maintain some semblance of order and professionalism. "Stay back, folks. Everything's under control," he called out, though even to his own ears, it sounded like a hollow promise. He had no answers for the curious onlookers who were now openly questioning his dog's conduct. "Officer, what's going on? Why is your dog being so aggressive?" A woman's voice cut through the clamor. Another added, "He's terrifying that poor woman." Sarah, desperate to understand, tried to speak, to ask what was happening, to explain her inability to see. "What is it? What's going on?" she called out, her voice thin and reedy against the relentless barks. But her words were swallowed whole by Axel's continued, unwavering vocal assault. The world was closing in, a terrifying, unseen cage of sound and uncertainty. She felt trapped, helpless, and utterly alone, despite the growing crowd. Each passing second stretched into an eternity of fear, leaving her physically and emotionally drained. The simple act of walking to the market had morphed into a horrifying ordeal, one she couldn't escape or even comprehend. Axel's barking escalated dramatically, transforming from a sharp, angry outburst into a guttural, terrifying growl that resonated through the increasingly agitated crowd. It was a sound full of raw urgency, a primal warning that sent shivers down Sarah's spine. The air itself seemed to crackle with the intensity of his canine alarm. This wasn't just a dog protesting. This was a dog in distress, signaling a profound threat. Buster, usually a picture of serene composure, couldn't maintain his stoicism any longer. His ears were flattened, his tail tucked, and then a low rumble started deep in his chest, rising into an uncharacteristically sharp, defensive bark of his own. It was a bark Sarah rarely heard, reserved only for moments of extreme peril or unusual distress. His barks weren't aimed at Axel, but rather seemed to be a desperate echo of the police dog's warning, a loyal protector signaling to his charge that something was profoundly wrong. The unexpected exchange between the two powerful dogs, one a trained police canine and the other a highly specialized guide dog, amplified the panic gripping the street. The buzzing murmur of the onlookers quickly morphed into shouts and frantic movements. Phones materialized, their cameras pointed at the scene, eager to capture every unfolding moment of what many perceived as police harassment. Accusations began to fly, sharp words cutting through the rising din. "What's wrong with your dog, officer?" one voice demanded, laced with indignation. "Leave her alone. Can't you see she's blind?" Another person yelled, their tone accusatory. Officer Miller felt the intense heat of public scrutiny, the weight of their judgment pressing down on him. Each shouted question, each flash from a camera, ratcheted up the pressure. He tried again to command Axel, his voice strained as he wrestled with the powerful German Shepherd's leash. But the dog was single-mindedly fixated, his entire body rigid with an unyielding alert. The situation was spiraling, threatening to erupt into outright chaos, and Miller, despite his years of experience, lacked any clear explanation for Axel's unprecedented behavior. He desperately needed to regain control, not just of his dog, but of the volatile crowd, before the situation became irreparable. Sarah, meanwhile, was trapped in a maelstrom of sound and terror. The relentless barking, the angry shouts from the crowd, the frantic pulls on Buster's harness, it all converged into a terrifying, shapeless nightmare. A profound wave of helplessness washed over her, chilling her to the bone. She leaned heavily on Buster, her hand gripping his fur, seeking reassurance, but even he, her anchor in a world of unseen challenges, seemed overwhelmed. His own agitated barks, so unlike his usual calm demeanor, were a stark indicator of the gravity of the unknown threat. Sarah's mind raced, desperate to comprehend the source of this sudden, terrifying ordeal. Was it a stray dog? Had Buster somehow been accidentally implicated? Her greatest fear was always being misunderstood, of her disability making her vulnerable to misjudgment or harm. Now, surrounded by an unseen force of anger and confusion, she felt utterly exposed, a pawn in a terrifying drama she couldn't even perceive. The world, usually a series of decipherable sounds and textures, had become a terrifying, indecipherable roar. She squeezed her eyes shut, wishing she could simply disappear, wishing for clarity in this terrifying, barking blur. She knew, with a chilling certainty, that something was profoundly wrong, far beyond a simple canine misunderstanding, but the true nature of the danger remained agonizingly hidden from her. Suddenly, amidst the escalating chaos and Officer Miller's desperate attempts to regain control, Axel lunged. It wasn't a direct attack on Sarah or even a renewed engagement with Buster, but a powerful, unexpected surge that pulled Officer Miller forward, off balance, his feet scrambling for purchase on the uneven pavement. Axel shot past Sarah with astonishing speed, a blur of fur and focused intention. His target lay just beyond her, unseen by human eyes, but clearly identified by the highly trained canine. The sudden, forceful movement sent Sarah stumbling, her hand losing its tight grip on Buster's harness for a terrifying moment. She gasped, bracing for an impact that never fully materialized as Buster, despite being momentarily jostled, remained steadfast, his sturdy body acting as her anchor. It was in this fractions of a second, as Axel cleared her, that Buster let out a sound Sarah had never heard from him before. It wasn't the agitated, defensive bark he'd used moments earlier in response to Axel's aggression. This was different, sharper, infused with an urgent clarity that pierced through the surrounding din. It was a bark of recognition, a guttural exclamation born of immediate understanding, devoid of any aggression. His body tensed, not in preparation for a fight, but in stark awareness, pointing toward the very spot Axel had bolted for. Sarah felt his entire being vibrate with a new, profound urgency, his head whipping to the side, his ears perked, straining into the unknown. The earlier confusion and fear in Buster's demeanor vanished, replaced by an unmistakable alert. This wasn't about another dog. This was about something far more significant, something truly dangerous. Officer Miller, having stumbled and nearly fallen, quickly regained his footing, his eyes following Axel's trajectory. What he saw instantly drained the color from his face, turning his earlier frustration into a chilling dread. Axel was now nose to the ground, whining softly but persistently, his unwavering focus directed at a nondescript crumpled paper bag lying half-hidden next to a overflowing public trash receptacle, barely a foot from where Sarah had been standing. The bag, seemingly discarded and innocuous, lay precisely where Axel had aimed his sudden lunge. As Miller's gaze locked onto the bag, a horrifying detail emerged from its folds. Peeking out from a tear in the paper, he saw a thin, brightly colored wire, impossibly out of place amidst the street litter. It flickered faintly in the harsh daylight, catching his eye with an almost imperceptible glint. Then, a sound so faint it was barely audible above the residual street noise reached his ears. A rhythmic, almost imperceptible ticking. It was slow, steady, and utterly terrifying. The ticking was not a figment of his imagination. It was real, chillingly present, emanating from the seemingly innocent paper bag. Officer Miller's blood ran cold. Axel hadn't been barking at Sarah, nor had he been misbehaving. He had been warning them, unequivocally, with every fiber of his being, of the imminent, silent threat lurking right at Sarah's feet. The German shepherd, his handler now realized with a sickening lurch, had detected something unspeakably dangerous. This was not a routine K9 alert for contraband or a suspect. This was an alert for something far more sinister, something that could have catastrophic consequences in the crowded urban environment. The realization hit him with the force of a physical blow. Axel's inexplicable, aggressive barking, the very behavior that had garnered so much public outrage, had been his partner's desperate attempt to communicate the presence of a hidden, deadly device. The seemingly ordinary street scene had been on the precipice of disaster, and only Axel's highly refined senses had prevented it from unfolding. The pressure from the crowd, the accusations, the confusion, all of it melted away, replaced by an urgent, overwhelming need to act. Sarah, unknowing, had been standing directly beside a ticking time bomb. The true nature of the threat emerged with a chilling clarity that instantly silenced the clamor of the street. The flickering wire and faint ticking sound discovered by Officer Miller were not part of some innocent discarded debris. Instead, They belonged to a crudely assembled yet terrifyingly effective improvised explosive device, ingeniously camouflaged within a crumpled fast food bag, nestled innocently beside a public waste bin, mere inches from where Sarah and Buster had been standing. Axel, the seemingly aggressive police dog, hadn't been barking at Sarah, nor was his agitation a misguided display of dominance. He had been issuing a desperate, urgent warning, a primal alert to the imminent, unseen danger lurking right at Sarah's feet. A danger that neither she nor the indignant crowd had been able to perceive. His earlier sustained barks had been the only language he had to communicate the deadly secret he had uncovered. Officer Miller, a man of quick reflexes and extensive training, instantly grasped the gravity of the situation. His heart hammered against his ribs, but his voice, though strained, cut through the remaining stunned silence with startling authority. "Explosive device. Everyone, clear the area now. Move back immediately," he bellowed, his eyes scanning the petrified faces around him. He wasted no time, pulling out his radio and barking orders into it, his words precise and urgent. "Unit 237 to dispatch. I have a confirmed IED at 14th and Elm, next to the diner, requesting immediate EOD team and full perimeter lockdown. Civilians evacuating." A wave of relief, mixed with profound shock, washed over him as he glanced down at Axel, who, though still tense, was now looking up at him expectantly. "Good boy, Axel," he murmured, his voice thick with admiration and gratitude, a silent apology for his own momentary misunderstanding of the dog's true intentions. Axel shifted his weight, a subtle tremor running through his powerful frame, then offered a soft whimper, as if acknowledging the praise. His mission understood. Sarah, though still in the dark visually, felt the sudden shift in the atmosphere. The aggressive, accusatory shouts of the crowd had dissolved into a panicked scramble, replaced by Officer Miller's urgent commands and the wail of distant sirens growing louder with each passing second. The pieces of the terrifying puzzle began to fall into place, clicking together with a horrifying logic. Axel's uncharacteristic barks, Buster's escalating anxiety, the sudden lunge, it all made a terrible, coherent sense. She hadn't been the target of aggression. She had been the unwitting center of a desperate rescue attempt. The police dog, initially perceived as a threat, a terrifying barking beast, had in fact been her most vigilant protector. A profound shiver ran down her spine, not of fear, but of the chilling realization of how close she had come to something unspeakable. Her hands, still clutching Buster's harness, tightened, a silent acknowledgement of the bravery of both animals. Axel wasn't a threat. He was a hero, whose seemingly aggressive actions had been the only way to communicate an unseen, deadly danger. The initial terror was now replaced by a surge of overwhelming, almost dizzying gratitude, a silent thank you to the brave K9 who had barked her away from the precipice of disaster. With the immediate danger identified, the street transformed from a place of confusion and anger into one of coordinated, albeit still tense, action. Officer Miller's shouts to clear the area were now echoed by other officers who had swiftly arrived on the scene, having been alerted to the unfolding chaos. Sarah, still processing the monumental shift in perception, felt Buster gently nudge her. His earlier agitation had subsided, replaced by a focused determination as he began to guide her away from the immediate vicinity of the device. Officer Miller, his face grim but relieved, quickly joined them, placing a reassuring hand on Sarah's arm. "This way, ma'am," he said, his voice firm, but now tinged with a respect she hadn't heard before. "Let's get you to a safe distance." The evacuation was swift and surprisingly orderly, a testament to the sudden, stark reality of the threat. People who had minutes ago been recording or shouting accusations were now hurrying away, their previous curiosity replaced by a palpable fear. Sarah, with Buster leading and Miller providing steady support, moved with the flow, her mind still reeling. She could feel the ground vibrating slightly under her feet as more emergency vehicles converged. The air, once filled with the cacophony of an angry crowd, was now dominated by the eerie wail of sirens and the urgent clipped commands of first responders. As they reached a designated safe zone, further down the street and around a corner, Officer Miller knelt beside her, ensuring she was comfortable. Buster, after a moment of careful assessment, lay down beside Sarah, his head resting on her lap, a silent sentinel. From their vantage point, Sarah could only imagine the scene unfolding, piecing together fragments from the officers' radios and the hushed conversations around her. She pictured the street, now eerily empty save for the emergency personnel, all focused on that one terrifying spot where the device lay. Then, the distinct, measured rumble of a heavily armored vehicle signaled another arrival. The bomb disposal unit. Their presence brought with it a fresh wave of anxiety, a stark reminder of the precision and danger involved. Specialists, moving with an almost surgical calm, began their delicate work. The tension in the air was thick, a tangible weight that pressed down on everyone. Every sound, the distant chatter of radios, the quiet instructions of the bomb squad leader, even the rustle of leaves, seemed amplified, each one holding the potential for disaster. Sarah closed her eyes, trying to make sense of the emotional roller coaster she had just endured. Her initial fear of Axel, that intimidating, barking police dog, had been so absolute, so complete. She had felt targeted, vulnerable, misunderstood. Now that same fear had dissolved, replaced by an overwhelming sense of gratitude and a profound introspection. How easily she, and indeed everyone else on the street, had misinterpreted the situation. Axel wasn't an aggressor. He was a sentinel, a protector, whose urgent warnings had been almost fatally misconstrued. It was a powerful lesson in the limitations of perception, in how swiftly judgment could be skewed when critical information was hidden. The police dog hadn't been barking at her, but for her, a silent, unseen hero in the urban landscape. The initial panic, the anger, the feeling of being victimized, all of it now seemed almost absurd in the face of the truth. What she had perceived as a threat was, in reality, a desperate act of salvation. The realization settled heavy and humbling in her chest, solidifying into an immense, quiet appreciation for the true nature of Axel's incredible, life-saving bark. After what felt like an eternity, but was likely only a tense handful of minutes, a quiet cheer rippled through the gathered crowd. The bomb disposal team, with an almost imperceptible nod, signaled success. The device had been safely neutralized. The chilling possibility of what could have happened, a scenario narrowly averted by Axel's unwavering vigilance, hung in the air for a moment longer before slowly dissipating, replaced by an overwhelming sense of relief. A collective sigh swept across the faces of everyone present, a visible release of the suffocating tension that had gripped the street. Emergency personnel began to stand down, their movements less hurried, their expressions softening from intense focus to weary satisfaction. News of the averted disaster spread with the speed of wildfire, amplified by the very smartphones that had moments ago been recording accusations. The crowd, initially vocal in their criticism and quick to judgment, now erupted in spontaneous applause. Cheers of "Officer Miller" and "Good Dog Axel" echoed through the street. People, their faces etched with a mixture of shock and profound gratitude, began to approach Officer Miller, many offering heartfelt apologies for their earlier skepticism and emotional outbursts. They recounted their hurried assumptions, their quickness to condemn, and the humbling realization that they had been so profoundly wrong. Several individuals even approached Sarah, their voices hushed with genuine concern and remorse, expressing relief that she was unharmed and apologizing for unknowingly adding to her distress with their frantic reactions. The shift in public sentiment was palpable, a testament to the power of truth when it finally emerged from the fog of confusion. Officer Miller, looking both exhausted and immensely proud, made his way towards Sarah. He knelt beside her again, his voice gentle and filled with a genuine sense of remorse for the initial scare. "Sarah," he began, "I am so incredibly sorry for the panic Axel caused. He was only trying to protect you." He explained the true intent behind Axel's relentless barking, detailing how the K9's advanced scent detection had pinpointed the threat long before any human could have. "He wasn't barking at you," Miller reiterated, his gaze earnest. "He was barking for you, warning us all of the danger right at your feet." Sarah, her own fear now completely replaced by gratitude, nodded slowly, a small, knowing smile gracing her lips. The pieces of the puzzle had finally aligned, forming a clear, albeit terrifying picture. Then, with Miller's reassuring hand on his collar, Axel was brought closer. The powerful German shepherd, whose barks had earlier terrified Sarah, now approached with a surprising softness. Miller gave a quiet command, and Axel, instead of his previous aggressive posturing, gently nudged his wet nose against Sarah's outstretched hand. It was a gesture of profound tenderness, a world away from the frantic warnings that had defined their initial encounter. Sarah, feeling the soft fur and the warm, inquisitive touch, reciprocated the gesture, gently stroking Axel's head. His fur was surprisingly soft, and she could feel the powerful muscles beneath, now relaxed. It was a stark, beautiful contrast to the chaotic moments earlier. Buster, who had been watchful, now stirred from his position. He rose slowly, and to Sarah's quiet delight and Officer Miller's visible surprise, nudged Axel with his own head, a soft, almost affectionate gesture. It was a quiet acknowledgement, a silent communication between the two canine heroes, an understanding forged in the crucible of shared danger. The bond between the two dogs, initially characterized by an instinctive tension and defensive barks, had transformed. It was clear that Buster, with his innate intelligence, now understood Axel's true role and the critical warning he had provided. This quiet moment, a silent exchange between the two dogs, spoke volumes about their intuitive understanding and marked the beginning of a profound, unexpected connection. Sarah, now safe and sound, felt an overwhelming wave of profound gratitude wash over her. The near catastrophe had etched itself into her memory, but it was the quiet heroism that resonated most deeply. Her hand found Buster's soft fur, a familiar comfort, but her thoughts drifted to Axel. She owed her life, and perhaps many other lives, to that magnificent police dog. His incessant barking, once a source of terror, had transformed into the most beautiful sound, a true symphony of salvation. The incident had deepened her belief in the intricate tapestry of perception, reminding her that what often appears to be chaos or aggression can, in fact, be a warning, a desperate attempt to avert disaster. Help, she now understood, could manifest in the most unexpected forms, through silent barks and unseen dangers. As the bomb squad completed their meticulous work, confirming the device was fully neutralized and the area secured, a palpable sense of relief permeated the air. Officer Miller, his face etched with exhaustion but also profound pride, returned to Sarah's side. He explained the final, intricate details of the device's disposal, reiterating Axel's pivotal role. Sarah listened intently, her heart swelling with emotion. "Please," she said, her voice soft but firm. "Thank Axel for me. He's a true hero. And thank you, Officer Miller, for understanding, for trusting your dog, and for keeping everyone safe." Miller smiled, a genuine warmth in his eyes that replaced the earlier tension. "Axel was just doing his job, ma'am, but he certainly did it exceptionally well today." He knelt, and moments later, she felt a gentle nudge against her hand. Axel. This time there was no bark, no growl, just a soft presence. Sarah reached out, her fingers finding his head, tracing the strong contours of his skull, feeling the coarse fur. She spoke to him, murmuring words of thanks and appreciation, and felt his head press slightly into her palm, a silent acknowledgement. Buster, who had been observing the interaction with his characteristic calm, nudged Axel's flank. It was a subtle, almost imperceptible gesture, but to Sarah it spoke volumes, an unspoken canine camaraderie forged in the crucible of danger. The two dogs, once on opposing sides of a misunderstanding, now shared a silent bond of mutual respect. The incident served as a powerful, unforgettable lesson for Sarah. Life, she realized, was filled with unseen currents and hidden meanings. What seemed like a threat on the surface could indeed be a profound warning, a desperate attempt by someone or something to communicate impending danger. Her world, always rich with sensory detail beyond sight, had gained another layer of depth. She had learned to trust not just her own senses, but the instincts of those around her, human and animal alike, even when their actions seemed inexplicable. The world was a complex place, and true understanding often required looking beyond the obvious, listening to the unspoken, and trusting in the wisdom of unexpected guardians. Later, as the crowds dispersed, and the street slowly returned to its bustling rhythm, Sarah and Buster resumed their interrupted journey to the market. But it was not the same walk. Every sound, every sensation, every distant siren now carried a different weight, a deeper meaning. Sarah walked with a newfound sense of security, an appreciation for the intricate web of protection that often operated just beyond the veil of ordinary perception. The bond between humans and animals, the unspoken language of trust, and the profound power of understanding beyond initial appearances had been dramatically highlighted. She thought of Axel, the police dog whose barks had saved her life, and a quiet sense of peace settled over her. The incident was a stark reminder that sometimes what seems like a threat is actually the most urgent, life-saving warning you could ever receive. Before you go, subscribe for more incredible true stories and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next video. What's a time you completely misunderstood a situation? Let us know in the comments below.